It is National Signing Day week here at 24/7 Sports. I am Blair Angulo, joined by national recruiting analyst Tom Loy, as well as Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated. We are here to break down Notre Dame's 2024 recruiting class, a class that ranks number 10th nationally, and a lot to like here, Tom, with what Marcus Freeman and that whole staff has done this cycle. Who are some top players you have your eye on as they start to arrive in South Bend?
Yeah, for me, it starts at the top. Kingston Viliamu-Asa, the linebacker, the All-American, might be the best linebacker in America. I'm super excited to see how Notre Dame uses him, with his off the edge, dropping, rushing the passer. For me, he's a day one contributor. Very, very tough to keep him off the field in year one. I'm also liking newly minted five-star defensive lineman Bryce Young. Tremendous growth over the past two seasons. I remember seeing him two summers ago at camp at Notre Dame, and I'm like, this is not the guy. We kind of joked about it at the All-American Bowl. He had such a long way to go. He was very raw, but man, the tireless work ethic. He went from an extremely raw son of a Hall of Famer in Bryant Young to a five-star recruit, special talent. And then quarterback C.J. Carr. Don't look for him to play too much this year with Riley Leonard there. But in my opinion, he might be the best quarterback in America, or at least an argument can be made. I've said that for a while, and I'm sticking to it. But you get around him, he's smart, he's polished, comfortable, rarely rattled, very accurate with the football, stronger arm than you'd expect, and very athletic. So very excited about that trio.
Well, I think you have to start with Kingston Viliamu-Asa. I agree with Tom. Very difficult to keep him off the field. Notre Dame has two linebackers to replace, and they have young talent back there. But this is a kid that's going to force his way on the football field. I think he has a lot of the cultural maturity that a Manti Te'o had coming in, and he's on the field immediately for Notre Dame. I like Gerby Lambert a lot. I think his physical tools are first round-esque. Now, you never know exactly how an offensive lineman is going to develop. There's a lot to learn. Usually when you're young, you make a lot of mistakes. But Notre Dame has a young offensive line. I'm not saying he'll make an immediate impact, but he might, because they are so young there, and they did lose their top tackles. I think he's a sensational talent and will be very, very good. Bryce Young, I'm old enough to have covered his father, Bryant Young, when he was at Notre Dame. The connection there, I think, is very important, because if Bryce Young is anything like his dad, he's going to arrive with a ton of maturity. And it's so difficult to measure his ceiling because he's relatively new to the game. He just keeps getting better and better. He keeps getting longer and longer. And I know the 24/7 guys, they keep getting opportunities to see him up close. And I think Bryce Young is going to be a sensational player with a chance to contribute early, because Notre Dame still has some questions at the defensive end position.
Plenty of star power at the top of this recruiting class, and I think it's remarkable considering that there were some question marks about how Coach Marcus Freeman would maybe respond to being the head coach, right? And how he would fare in some of these head-to-head battles. I think you really have to like what they've done on the recruiting trail. Now, Tim, there are a lot of stars on this list. Are there any guys that you see potentially having an instant impact when they arrive on campus?
I like a lot of guys on that list, but I'm going to point to Micah Gilbert, the wide receiver. And I realize that Notre Dame has fortified their wide receiver crew. They brought three freshman wideouts, three grad transfers. But Micah Gilbert, there's just a physical maturity to him that you don't always see with receivers. You know, young receivers are running around the high school football fields, and they're usually great athletes. But are you physically prepared to handle the collegiate level? Again, Notre Dame is deep, much deeper at those positions right now. But if, let's say, they have some physical setbacks like they did last year, I could see Micah Gilbert having the physical tools to step up. Plus, we know he played against great competition in high school. I think that's really prepared him for the collegiate game.
Yeah, I love the pick of Micah Gilbert, man. He might be more ready day one than anybody in the 23 or the 24 class when you're looking at the wide receiver position. But for me, I'm going to go again with Kingston Viliamu-Asa, the All-American linebacker. I'm not sure what else I can say about him. The guy is different. He's a guy that Notre Dame doesn't just want to play early, but they need him to play early because he's such a special guy. He's a good bet to be a potential freshman All-American. We saw it with Benjamin Morrison, and this is a guy that's absolutely going to be in that mold. Blair, you know him as well as just about anybody. He's a different cat, special, extremely talented player.
He loves to attack those gaps. And when you think about freshmen, when you think about linebackers, that's what you need. You need that competitiveness, you need the spirit, and I think you need the effort. And he checks off all those boxes. And I think that's a future leader of that defense. Now, those are some of the big name stars that we expect the Fighting Irish to obviously have a great spotlight with. But Tom, there are some guys that maybe the staff feels a little bit better than the industry does.
Yeah, I got two for you. Offensive lineman Anthony Knapp out of Georgia, 3-star recruit. Notre Dame looks at him as one of the most underrated offensive linemen in the country. Plays against some great competition in the Peach State. He's a nasty, mauler, physical offensive lineman with advanced techniques. Needs some time to fill out, but he has that luxury along the offensive line at Notre Dame, as many consider them O-line U. But Notre Dame sees a potential starter by year 2 with this kid. The other one I want to mention is cornerback Leonard Moore out of Texas, another 3-star prospect, a two-way standout in high school. I know our Texas guys rave about him all year long. Notre Dame targeted him early, landed him. Mike Mickens did a great job there, but this is a young man who's long, athletic, runs really well, very instinctive. I mean, he plays the ball really well, high points to football. Notre Dame is very, very fired up about him.
16 blue chippers in this 2024 class, and a program that jumped up 2 spots from what Marcus Freeman and that staff accomplished in the 2023 recruiting cycle. Tim, how does this class fit into the team's landscape?
Well, I think, if there's one thing that Marcus Freeman has done an exceptional job of, it's roster management, which is more difficult now, as you guys know. I mean, more difficult now than ever to keep that roster, at the levels that you want. And I think that clearly Notre Dame needed help at receiver. They needed help last year, and then they lost a bunch of wide receivers. So bring in 3 grad transfer receivers and then 3 very highly thought of wideouts in the class of 2024 was huge. And then you pair them up with Mike Brown, who I think is going to do a sensational job for them at wide receiver. So they did a good job there. I think there's a nice balance. I think there's a nice between the upper and lower classmen. And again, this is a roster management situation. I think Marcus Freeman has handled that really, really well. They continue to have a bevy of backs that are quality. They lost Audric Estime, and then they bring in a couple more they're outstanding. What Marcus Freeman has been able to do with this roster is eliminate a lot of the dead wood. And you had that in the past, and you just can't afford to have that type of roster now. You've got to be able to turn it over and have an influx of talent whenever there are weaknesses in various spots in the roster. So I think he's done a really nice job of balancing this roster. It's an ongoing challenge from month to month, week to week, but I think Marcus Freeman's really handled that very well.
Notre Dame right now stacking elite playmakers on elite playmakers, and no one does a better job of covering Irish recruiting than our guys here, Tim Prister and Tom Loy. Thanks so much for joining us. Notre Dame fans, you could stay locked into everything. They're already off to a fast start in the 2025 recruiting cycle. You want to stay tuned as we make that charge towards the early signing period later this year. You can catch all the coverage over at irishillustrated.com.